that the very things you fear or try to avoid are actually the key to unlocking your greatest potential. Within each of us lies a hidden force, a darker side, often misunderstood and pushed into the shadows. Yet, this shadow holds the power to transform your life, to lead you to a place of deeper authenticity, creativity, and freedom. But why do we hide from it? Why do we shy away from the very parts of ourselves that could bring us the most growth? Today, we dive into the heart of Carl Jung's most profound concept, the shadow. We will explore why embracing your dark side is not just necessary, but vital for your personal evolution. Through understanding and integrating the shadow, we open the door to wholeness, breaking free from the invisible chains that hold us back and stepping into the power of who we truly are. Get ready to uncover what's hidden and awaken the untapped strength within. Inside every human being, there exists a hidden world, a realm of thoughts, emotions, and instincts that often remain unseen. These parts of us carry not only the aspects we are proud of, but also those we fear, deny, or reject. Carl Jung, one of the most profound thinkers in psychology, called this hidden realm the shadow. Jung believed that within this shadow lies a vital part of who we are. It contains our suppressed desires, fears, anger, weaknesses, but also tremendous creativity, power, and wisdom. By ignoring it, we unknowingly limit our own growth. But when we dare to confront it, we unlock the doorway to our true potential. Many of us live our lives striving to be good, kind, and accepted. We shape ourselves according to the expectations of society, family, and culture. In doing so, we often push away the parts of ourselves that don't fit into the image we want to present. We might deny feelings of jealousy, anger, selfishness, or vulnerability because they seem unacceptable. But these rejected parts don't disappear. They simply go underground, hiding within the subconscious mind, influencing us without our awareness. Over time, this creates an inner conflict, a gap between who we truly are and the mask we wear to face the world. Jung's insight was revolutionary because he taught that real psychological growth does not come from pretending to be perfect, but from becoming whole. To be whole, we must accept all parts of ourselves, even the ones we dislike or fear. The shadow, far from being a purely negative force, holds the keys to our authenticity, passion, and inner strength. It contains qualities that, when acknowledged and integrated, make us stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Ignoring the shadow leads to stagnation and internal suffering. We find ourselves repeating destructive patterns without understanding why. We project our own rejected feelings onto others, blaming them for traits we secretly fear in ourselves. Jung warned that what we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as fate. This means that unless we make the effort to know our shadow, it will control us from the dark, influencing our relationships, decisions, and sense of self in ways we do not recognize. But confronting the shadow is not easy. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to face discomfort. It asks us to question the narratives we have built about who we are. It asks us to feel emotions we have tried to escape. Yet, the reward is profound. Those who dare to walk into their inner darkness emerge more self-aware, resilient, and alive. They become less controlled by fear and more guided by purpose. They stop running from themselves and start living from a place of true authenticity. The journey into the shadow is not about becoming someone different. It is about reclaiming what was lost. It is about seeing that within our darkness lies immense beauty. It is recognizing that anger can fuel justice, that fear can sharpen wisdom, that vulnerability can deepen connection. As Jung beautifully put it, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In this exploration, we will dive deeper into Carl Jung's understanding of the shadow, how it shapes human behavior, why it must be confronted, and how integrating it leads to real personal evolution. We will discover that the parts of ourselves we most fear are often the very parts that hold the seeds of our greatness. To evolve, to truly grow as human beings, we must not flee from the darkness within us. We must turn toward it with open eyes, open hearts, and a fierce commitment to becoming whole. This is the hidden power within us, not perfection, but wholeness, not denial, but acceptance, not light without darkness, but light born through embracing the darkness. This is the path Carl Jung pointed to, and it remains as essential today as it was in his time. Carl Gustav Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who lived from 1875 to 1961. His ideas changed the way we understand the human mind, and even today, his work continues to influence psychology, philosophy, art, and spirituality. Jung was not just a scientist, he was an explorer of the human soul. He believed that beneath our daily thoughts and feelings lies a vast inner world filled with symbols, myths, and deep truths about who we are. His journey into the human psyche revealed that we are far more complex and mysterious than we usually think. In his early career, Jung worked closely with Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis. They shared an interest in exploring the unconscious mind, but eventually their paths separated. Jung felt that Freud's focus on sexuality as the main driving force behind human behavior was too limited. He believed there were deeper layers within us, connected not only to our personal experiences, but to a collective memory shared by all humanity. Jung called this the collective unconscious, a storehouse of ancient symbols and archetypes that shape our thoughts, dreams, and behaviors without us even realizing it. Jung introduced many important concepts that are still widely discussed today, such as introversion and extroversion, archetypes, individuation, and the shadow. Each of these ideas was rooted in his deep desire to understand the whole human being, not just the conscious mind, but the unconscious parts that often remain hidden. He saw psychological health not as achieving perfection, but as achieving balance and wholeness. He taught that every person's life is a unique journey toward becoming their true self, a process he called individuation. What made Jung's approach so powerful was his respect for mystery and the unknown. He studied dreams, myths, religions, and even alchemy to understand how human beings seek meaning. He believed that symbols and stories from different cultures reflected universal patterns in the human soul. To Jung, healing and growth did not come only from logic and reason, but also from reconnecting with these deeper, symbolic layers of life. Jung's exploration of the shadow was one of his most groundbreaking contributions. He realized that people are often divided within themselves. On one side, there is the personality we show to the world, our persona. On the other side, there is the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny, hide, or are ashamed of. Jung saw that real growth begins when we stop pretending to be only our best selves and start facing the truth of who we really are, both light and dark. Even though Jung lived in a different time, his ideas feel incredibly relevant today. We live in a world where appearances are carefully managed, where people often hide their true feelings behind masks of success, happiness, or acceptance. Jung's work reminds us that healing and authenticity require us to go beyond these masks. We must turn inward, listen to our dreams, face our fears, and reconnect with the parts of ourselves we have forgotten or rejected. Jung also emphasized that this journey is deeply personal. There are no simple formulas or shortcuts. Each person must walk their own path, guided by their own inner experiences. But he also gave us tools like active imagination, dream analysis, and shadow work to help us navigate this path. His work invites us to be brave, to explore the unknown within ourselves, and to see even our darkest aspects as opportunities for growth and transformation. Ultimately, Carl Jung was not just a theorist. He was a guide for those who seek to understand themselves more deeply. He opened doors into the hidden places of the mind and heart, offering insights that are not only intellectually rich, but also spiritually profound. His legacy is not a set of rigid doctrines, but a living invitation to explore, to question, and to evolve. Through his work, we are reminded that the journey to wholeness is not easy, but it is the most important journey we can ever take. The shadow is one of Carl Jung's most important and fascinating ideas. In simple terms, the shadow represents the parts of ourselves that we do not want to see or accept. These are the thoughts, feelings, and desires that we have learned to hide because they do not fit with how we want to be seen or how society expects us to behave. They include emotions like anger, jealousy, pride, selfishness, and fear. But the shadow is not just about so-called negative traits. It can also contain hidden talents, passions, and strengths that we have ignored or been taught to suppress. From early childhood, we are taught what is good and what is bad. Our families, schools, religions, and cultures set rules about how we should act. To be accepted and loved, we start pushing away the parts of ourselves that don't match these expectations. We build a public image, a mask we wear every day. Jung called this the persona. While the persona helps us fit into society, it also causes a split inside us. The parts we hide away do not vanish. They sink into the unconscious mind and form the shadow. The shadow is powerful because it operates without our awareness. It influences our behavior, choices, and reactions in subtle but strong ways. For example, if someone denies their own anger, they might become passive-aggressive or suddenly explode over small issues. If a person denies their competitiveness, they might sabotage others without realizing it. The less we recognize our shadow, the more it controls us from behind the scenes. As Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Interestingly, the shadow is not only personal. Jung believed that there is a collective aspect too. A collective shadow made up of the darker impulses of groups, nations, and even humanity as a whole. When we see prejudice, cruelty, or hatred at a societal level, it often reflects a collective shadow that has been denied and projected outward onto others. Facing the shadow does not mean becoming evil or giving in to every dark impulse. Instead, it means acknowledging that these feelings exist within us. It means accepting that being human is complex We are not purely good or purely bad. We are a mixture of many emotions and drives. When we accept our shadow, we become more balanced and less likely to be controlled by unconscious fears or hidden desires. Jung also pointed out that the shadow is a source of enormous creative energy. Many artists, writers, and thinkers have drawn their inspiration from their inner darkness. It is often when people confront their pain, anger, or loneliness that they create their most powerful work. The shadow holds the parts of ourselves that are wild, passionate, and alive. If we integrate these aspects consciously, we become richer and fuller as individuals. Ignoring the shadow, on the other hand, leads to a life that feels shallow and limited. We may constantly blame others for our problems, feel disconnected from ourselves, or struggle with anxiety and depression without understanding why. We might create a perfect image on the outside while feeling empty inside. This is because denying parts of our true nature always comes at a cost. Jung's idea of the shadow invites us to stop running from ourselves. It encourages us to look honestly at our fears, our flaws, and even our darker desires, not to judge or destroy them, but to understand and integrate them. By doing so, we do not become worse, we become whole. We learn to live more consciously, to make choices based not on fear or denial, but on true self-knowledge. Embracing the shadow is not a sign of weakness, but a step toward real maturity and inner freedom. The journey into the shadow is challenging, but it is also deeply rewarding. It is a journey that leads us to our true selves, not the polished image we present to the world, but the rich, complex, and vibrant human being that we really are. From a very young age, we learn that certain behaviors and emotions are considered bad or unacceptable. When a child throws a tantrum, expresses anger, or even shows too much ambition, they might be scolded, punished, or made to feel guilty. Over time, the child learns an important survival lesson. To be loved and accepted, certain parts of themselves must be hidden. This is where the suppression of the shadow begins. It is not that we consciously decide to lock away parts of ourselves. Rather, it happens slowly through the repeated messages we receive from our families, schools, and society. Society plays a powerful role in shaping what is allowed and what must be denied. Every culture has rules about how people should behave. Some cultures value obedience, while others emphasize competition or emotional control. Whatever the dominant values are, they create a system where anything that threatens the smooth running of society is pushed underground. Traits like aggression, sexuality, sadness, selfishness, or even creativity can become part of the shadow if they are not considered acceptable by the group. Fear is another major reason we suppress the shadow. We fear being rejected, abandoned, or punished if we show our true selves. As social beings, acceptance by others is deeply tied to our sense of safety and survival. Thus, we learn to build a persona, a mask we wear to fit in. This mask presents the qualities that are approved of: politeness, kindness, hard work, while hiding the ones that might cause trouble. But the fear never truly disappears. It lingers in the background, constantly whispering that if people really knew who we were inside, they would turn away. Shame acts as a glue that holds the suppression in place. Shame is a painful emotion that tells us not only that we made a mistake, but that we are a mistake. When we feel ashamed of certain parts of ourselves, our desires, weaknesses, or emotions, we push them down even harder. Shame doesn't just hide our darkness, it convinces us that we are unworthy because of it. This deep shame keeps us disconnected from our shadow and therefore from our own wholeness. Carl Jung understood that while society needs rules to function, the price of suppressing the shadow is high. The more we deny our inner darkness, the more it builds pressure inside us. It leaks out in unhealthy ways. Through anger we can't control, addictions, depression, anxiety, or self-sabotage. It also causes us to project our hidden qualities onto others. If we are afraid to face our own aggression, for example, we might see the world as full of aggressive people and feel constantly under threat. Projection allows us to avoid looking at ourselves, but it also distorts reality and damages our relationships. Another reason we suppress the shadow is that facing it is painful. It challenges the image we have built of ourselves. No one wants to admit they can be jealous, selfish, cowardly, or cruel. We like to think of ourselves as good, kind, and reasonable. Confronting the shadow forces us to admit that we are much more complicated. It forces us to take responsibility for parts of ourselves that we would rather pretend don't exist. However, Jung taught that until we face our shadow, we are not truly free. Suppression keeps us stuck in patterns we don't understand. It limits our creativity, our energy, and our ability to connect with others authentically. Only by shining a light into the hidden places can we begin to heal. The shadow doesn't go away by ignoring it. It grows stronger in the darkness. But when we approach it with honesty and compassion, we start to reclaim parts of ourselves that are vital for our growth. It is important to understand that everyone has a shadow. Having one does not make us bad people. It simply makes us human. The goal is not to eliminate the shadow, but to bring it into consciousness. By doing so, we move from being prisoners of our fears to being creators of our lives. We become less reactive, more centered, and more able to respond to life with wisdom rather than with unconscious habits. Suppression might feel like safety, but true safety and strength come from knowing ourselves completely. When we face our shadow, we begin the true work of becoming whole. Ignoring the shadow does not make it disappear. In fact, the more we deny or reject the hidden parts of ourselves, the more they gain strength in our unconscious mind. Like a pressure cooker left unattended, the repressed emotions, desires, and fears within the shadow build intensity until they eventually find ways to burst out, often in harmful or destructive forms. Carl Jung warned that when we refuse to confront our shadow, it doesn't simply vanish. It takes control over us in ways we do not see or understand. One of the biggest dangers of ignoring the shadow is projection. When we are unwilling to recognize a certain trait in ourselves, we often begin to see it exaggerated in others. For example, someone who cannot admit their own selfishness may constantly accuse others of being selfish. Someone who hides their own anger may see the world as full of hostile people. This projection damages relationships, fuels misunderstandings, and creates conflict both personally and collectively. It keeps us trapped in a cycle of blaming others for qualities we are unwilling to face within ourselves. Another danger is emotional instability. When the shadow remains unconscious, it leaks into our behavior through mood swings, anxiety, depression, and sudden bursts of anger or fear. We might feel overwhelmed without understanding why. We might find ourselves overreacting to small problems, feeling irrational guilt or shame, or struggling with a sense of inner emptiness. These emotional symptoms are signs that something deep within us is being ignored and is trying to surface for recognition and healing. Ignoring the shadow can also lead to self-sabotage. Unacknowledged fears, insecurities, and suppressed desires often work against our conscious goals. A person might work hard toward success, but unconsciously fear the responsibilities that come with it, and thus find ways to fail at the last moment. Another might long for deep relationships, but secretly fear vulnerability, and therefore push people away. When we do not understand our inner conflicts, we become trapped in patterns that seem impossible to change. In extreme cases, unacknowledged shadow material can erupt in dangerous or violent behavior. History is filled with examples where societies, blinded by collective shadows of hatred, fear, or prejudice, committed atrocities against others. On a personal level, someone who completely denies their capacity for cruelty or rage may one day act out in ways that shock even themselves. Jung emphasized that evil is not something that exists only out there in others. It lives within all of us, and only by recognizing it can we prevent it from controlling our actions. Another serious danger is the loss of authenticity. When we constantly suppress parts of ourselves, we live a life that feels false. We create a perfect image for the outside world, but inside we feel disconnected and hollow. Life becomes a performance rather than an authentic experience. We may find ourselves feeling unfulfilled, restless, or unsure of who we really are. This disconnection from our true selves can lead to a deep existential crisis, where nothing seems meaningful anymore. Jung believed that the shadow contains not only darkness, but also essential vitality. Creativity, passion, resilience, and strength often lie hidden in the shadow. By ignoring it, we deny ourselves access to these powerful energies. We become less than what we could be. We live half lives, carefully avoiding discomfort, but also missing out on the richness and depth that embracing all of ourselves would bring. It is important to remember that facing the shadow is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming real. It is about understanding that we are complex beings, capable of both good and bad, light and dark. Accepting this truth does not make us weaker. It makes us stronger and wiser. It allows us to act with greater self-awareness and compassion, both for ourselves and for others. The dangers of ignoring the shadow are profound and far-reaching. They affect not only our inner world, but also our relationships, our achievements, and the wider world we live in. Jung's message was clear. If we do not face our darkness, we risk being ruled by it. Only by bringing our hidden parts into the light of awareness can we hope to live with true freedom, integrity, and peace. Recognizing your shadow is not an easy task because by its very nature, the shadow is hidden from your everyday awareness. It lives in the unconscious mind, influencing your behavior and emotions without you realizing it. Yet, if you are willing to pay close attention to certain signs and patterns, you can begin to uncover the parts of yourself that you have pushed away. One of the most important clues to your shadow is emotional reactions. Strong emotions, especially those that seem out of proportion to the situation, often point toward hidden material. If you find yourself becoming extremely angry, jealous, defensive, or hurt by something minor, it may not just be about the present moment. It may be that an unconscious part of yourself has been touched. Instead of immediately blaming others or trying to suppress the feeling, you can ask yourself, what part of me is being exposed here? What am I afraid to see? Another way to recognize your shadow is through the people you dislike or criticize the most. Often, the traits that irritate or disgust you and others are reflections of qualities you have denied in yourself. For example, if you are deeply annoyed by people who seek attention, it may be that you have suppressed your own need for recognition. If you hate arrogance in others, it might point to your own hidden pride. Jung called this projection, the unconscious act of seeing in others what we refuse to see in ourselves. Paying attention to who and what triggers you can reveal surprising insights about your shadow. Your dreams are another powerful tool. The unconscious mind often speaks through dreams, presenting images and stories that hint at what is hidden. Shadow material often appears in dreams as threatening figures, animals, or chaotic situations. Nightmares, in particular, can be signals from the shadow trying to reach your conscious awareness. By exploring the emotions and symbols in your dreams, you can start to uncover parts of yourself that need attention and understanding. Self-sabotaging patterns are also signals. If you repeatedly face the same problems, failed relationships, missed opportunities, chronic procrastination, it could be your shadow at work. These patterns are not just bad luck or external problems. They often reflect inner conflicts that have not been resolved. Asking yourself honestly why you are stuck and what fears or desires you might be denying can help you bring these patterns into the light. Another important aspect of recognizing your shadow is noticing your secret fantasies and daydreams. These often reveal hidden desires or parts of yourself that you feel ashamed of or afraid to admit. A person who daydreams about power may have suppressed ambitions. Someone who fantasizes about rebellion might be hiding their true dissatisfaction with their life. And instead of judging these fantasies, it is important to see them as messages from parts of yourself that long for expression. Recognizing your shadow also requires humility. It means admitting that you are not always the person you wish to appear to be. It means accepting that you, like every human being, have weaknesses, contradictions, and darker impulses. This can be uncomfortable, but it is essential for growth. The goal is not to punish yourself or drown in guilt, but to see yourself more clearly and compassionately. Practicing mindfulness and honest self-reflection is key. Taking time to observe your reactions, your judgments, your recurring dreams, and your emotional patterns helps you slowly build a map of your inner world. Writing in a journal, talking to a trusted friend or therapist, or simply sitting quietly with your feelings can create the space needed for hidden parts of yourself to emerge. The process of recognizing your shadow is ongoing. It is not something you do once and then forget about. Life constantly presents new challenges and opportunities that reveal deeper layers of the unconscious. Each time you face a difficult emotion, a painful relationship, or a stubborn fear, you have a new chance to learn more about who you really are. By choosing to recognize your shadow instead of running from it, you take the first courageous step toward true self-understanding and lasting transformation. It is not easy work, but it is the work that leads to true freedom. The freedom to live as your whole, authentic self. Embracing the shadow is not about fighting it, destroying it, or pretending it does not exist. It is about welcoming all the parts of yourself that you have been taught to fear, deny, or hide. Carl Jung believed that true healing and growth come not from chasing perfection, but from accepting and integrating the fullness of who we are, both the light and the dark. This is the path to real wholeness. The first step toward embracing the shadow is awareness. Once you recognize the hidden parts within yourself, the anger, the jealousy, the pride, the fear, you stop being ruled by them. Awareness shines a light on the unconscious, allowing you to see the patterns that once controlled you without your permission. Instead of reacting blindly, you can now respond thoughtfully. Instead of projecting your fears onto others, you can take responsibility for your inner world. Acceptance is the next vital step. Acceptance does not mean approving of harmful behavior or giving in to every impulse. It means acknowledging that these feelings exist and that they are part of being human. When you accept your shadow, you stop wasting energy fighting yourself. You stop pretending to be someone you are not. You realize that having darker emotions does not make you bad. It makes you real. You become more forgiving of yourself and, in turn, more forgiving of others. Facing your shadow can be uncomfortable and even painful. It may bring up old wounds, guilt, or shame. But on the other side of that discomfort lies incredible freedom. No longer trapped by fear of being found out or judged, you can live more authentically. You no longer have to wear a heavy mask or constantly prove your worth. You can be honest about your needs, your desires, and your weaknesses, and still feel worthy of love and respect. Another powerful part of embracing the shadow is discovering hidden strengths. Many qualities buried in the shadow are not weaknesses at all, but sources of great energy. Qualities like assertiveness, passion, creativity, and leadership often lie hidden because they were once discouraged or misunderstood. When you reclaim these parts of yourself, you gain new confidence and vitality. You become more capable of setting boundaries, pursuing your dreams, and standing up for what matters to you. Embracing the shadow also deepens your empathy. When you understand your own darkness, you are less likely to judge others harshly. You realize that everyone struggles with hidden fears and flaws. Instead of feeling superior or separate, you feel connected. You can offer real compassion because you know what it means to wrestle with yourself. This connection builds stronger relationships, deeper trust, and a more honest way of being with others. Jung described this process of integration as the journey toward individuation, becoming your true whole self. It is not about achieving a perfect state, but about becoming conscious of all parts of yourself and living in alignment with your deeper truth. Individuation is the art of being uniquely yourself while staying connected to the greater human experience. The journey of embracing the shadow is lifelong. New layers will continue to emerge as you grow and face new challenges. But each time you meet a hidden part of yourself with courage and kindness, you become stronger, wiser, and freer. You no longer have to fear your darkness because you have learned how to hold it with awareness and compassion. In the end, embracing the shadow is an act of profound self-love. It is choosing to see yourself fully, not just the parts that are easy or admirable, but the entire beautiful, complicated being that you are. It is through this embrace that you evolve, not into a perfect person, but into a complete one, a person who is not divided inside, but whole, grounded, and truly alive. Confronting your shadow is not an easy journey, but it is one of the most important steps you can take toward true evolution. Carl Jung taught that we cannot become whole by remaining in the light and ignoring the darkness. Growth demands that we explore the hidden corners of our being, face the parts we are afraid of, and bring them into the light of awareness. This process, often called shadow work, is not about becoming someone new. It is about reclaiming who you have always been but were taught to abandon. The more you understand and integrate your shadow, the more you free yourself from the invisible chains that have held you back. No longer trapped by unconscious fears, projections, or self-sabotage, you begin to act with greater clarity, strength, and authenticity. You stop living as a fragmented being and start experiencing the richness of your full humanity, the beautiful and the messy, the light and the dark, the known and the unknown. Shadow work also brings a deeper sense of compassion. When you recognize your own flaws and hidden struggles, you become less quick to judge others. You realize that everyone is carrying their own invisible battles. This compassion deepens your relationships, softens your heart, and creates space for more honest and meaningful connections. Importantly, embracing your shadow fuels your creative energy. Many of the passions, talents, and ambitions you may have suppressed are waiting for permission to come alive. As you reclaim these lost parts, you tap into a wellspring of inspiration, motivation, and resilience. Your life becomes more vibrant because you are no longer cutting off vital parts of yourself to fit into a narrow image of who you think you should be. The journey of confronting the shadow is ongoing. It requires patience, courage, and a deep commitment to self-honesty. But with every layer you uncover, you move closer to your true essence. You become less reactive and more intentional. You begin to live from a place of wholeness rather than from fear or shame. You become capable of real inner freedom, the freedom to live fully, love deeply, and create fearlessly. In the end, your shadow is not your enemy. It is a powerful ally that holds the key to your greatest growth. By daring to meet it with open eyes and an open heart, you embark on the real path of transformation. As Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. It is through this courageous act of facing our own darkness that we truly evolve, not into someone perfect, but into someone whole, real, and beautifully human.